and we have a rich, rich history, and today we're going to talk a little bit about that today as we dedicate Laurel-Snow. Laurel-Snow's history started in the 1960s, about 4 decades ago, because there was a great interest in preserving wild places like this. From the very start of the movement, the importance of this place, which is 800 acres in the Richland Creek Gorge here in Rake County, was recognized, and the protection was actually taken up by a private company, the Bowater Southern Corporation. And this is a very unique thing that they did. They were a for-profit company. They were in the timber business, but yet at this location and several locations, they did something that was unprecedented. They actually set aside a part of their forest for recreation, for the people to enjoy, and hence the birth of the Pocket Wilderness program. And all of those Pocket Wildernesses, there's several of them. This is probably the most famous of any of them. That property was in fact leased at that time by Bowater from the Gardner family of Virginia, who we're really glad that you all are here today, and opened the Laurel-Snow Pocket Wilderness in 1971. About that time, we also created the State Natural Area Program, which is now 41 years strong. And so within just a few years, in 1973, the wilderness, this particular area was under management by the state of Tennessee, allowing this 800 acres to be managed by the State Natural Area Program. And even though that was a good thing, it really wasn't making this property completely safe from future development. In 2008, Bowater conveyed their lease, getting a little hoarse here, conveyed their lease of the 800 acres of Gardner land to the state of Tennessee, along with the sale of 1,460 acres of the watershed. So the natural area grew to 2,260 acres in sight. Again, a good step in the process, but the clock was still kicking. We have Laurel Falls and Snow Falls and the Blue Hole and all the other swimming holes here in this fantastic gorge, and the history associated with the ironworks and the coke oven. All that was still at risk to some degree. So thankfully, the Gardner family was of the disposition that, even though many of them have told me this is their first time here today, but they were the disposition to help us to purchase this property from them. And this past August, the Gardner family agreed to the sale of these magnificent natural and heritage features here in Laurel-Snow to the people of the state of Tennessee. And they did so with full appreciation for the merits of the beauty and the history found here, and in full agreement with us that the destiny of this site would be preservation for posterity. So today, this is a very noble act, and we're here to really recognize your family for that very, very strong act of benevolence on your part. And I would like to recognize Dr. Charles Gardner, if he would please stand up and introduce the family.
Thank you. Yeah, the welcome that we've gotten has been just marvelous, and I think it's even special for my brother and 2 of my 3 sisters who are here, because this is really a homecoming for them since they were born in Chattanooga. Me, I'm a Virginian, but my mom is from Nashville. I almost feel like he stole all of my thunder, because when I was thinking of just a few remarks to say, what came to my mind is basically what you're seeing back behind him. I see what we have done here is kind of the culmination of a journey that began when the first settlers came here, continued through Titus Salt, purchasing the property, setting up the Dayton Coal and Iron, to it ending up somehow in the hands of a hotel man. And I'm still trying to figure out how a hotel man ended up with all of this mining and everything, to this hotel man not quite knowing, I think, what to do, turning to his 22-year-old son, who was a student at University of Tennessee at the time after the war, and basically turning around and turning the running of this property over to him. Now, my grandfather, he was considered a pretty shrewd businessman, and I don't think my dad ever really appreciated the confidence that my grandfather must have had in him to basically turn this over to him to run. Now, obviously, my grandfather was, part of it and whatever, but he was still managing hotels all over the place, to include, the Maxwell House up in Nashville. Ultimately, about 1958, I think, as my aunt, my father's sister, I was talking with her the other day and just saying, can you tell me anything about Papa and the property and whatever? And she said, well, he always considered this a pain in the ass. Which, again, I can understand. You're a hotel man, and you've got all of this, and they tried cattle ranching, they tried farming, they tried, building blocks. They tried all kinds of things. And then finally, I think it was in 1958, is when they finally decided, okay, we're getting out of the business altogether and leased the property to Hiwassee, which I guess became Bowater. Well, of course, then Bowater very wonderfully decided that they were going to set this aside, as you said, as a wilderness area. I've been watching TV. I see how they can go in and tear down all of the lumber in places like this. They've got ways of doing it, especially helicopters and stuff, but instead they decided to set this aside. And so we've kind of known about this, this through the years. Well, then came time where we kind of got involved again, was when the state of Tennessee wanted to take over the lease, and they needed our approval to do it. Well, by that point in time, my father, unfortunately, was not in a position where he could really put his 2 cents worth in, so talked with my mother, and she was all for it. And about that time is when Bobby Fulcher came into our lives and started talking about purchasing not only this, but a corridor for the Cumberland Trail. And again, my mother and talking with other members of the family, we thought that would be a marvelous thing to do. It would have happened before now, but my father's death and estate, anybody who has to deal with that knows that that puts a monkey wrench into things. But finally, when we had a chance to go through with it, we have. And just being here today and having a chance to just see how marvelous it is. Looking on the internet and, Google Earth and, all of the things that are on there just doesn't do this justice. It's like trying to explain to somebody how the Grand Canyon looks if you haven't been there. You just can't do justice to it. So I think I speak for all of the members of the family here, especially Cindy, Wes, Terry, Kathy, who lives in Washington State, so she couldn't be here today, and of course all the other members of the family except for my wife are here. I think I speak for everyone that we're just overjoyed that we could be a part in this, and I think both my father and my grandfather would be looking down today and saying, good job. And I think I say that because I know my father liked the out of doors. He was very instrumental in helping to get the Virginia State, the Virginia Marine Science Museum set up in Virginia Beach. My grandfather, as I've learned from various people, I think 2 things really tell me a lot about him. One, I just found out today. I didn't realize that when he set up the lease, one of the stipulations was that this area could not be strip mined. And we all know what's happening in West Virginia in places where you take something beautiful like this and just strip mine it to hell and plant a few saplings and think that you've done due diligence. The second thing was when he turned over to my father, and my father had to do the survey for the property. This tells you again something about Daddy. Had he ever surveyed? No. Okay. But he was an autodidact. He would teach himself how to do things. So he learned how to survey, and he and Arlie Harris and some of the others went around surveying. Well, as you can imagine, when you're doing that, there may be some boundary disputes. And when you're going up to some of these folks around here and you start surveying and there starts being some questions about where lines are and what have you, well, Papa gave Daddy one simple direction. He said, when you're dealing with these folks, be fair to them and give them the benefit of the doubt. So, you know, Papa, I think, you know, he thought about the land, he thought about people, and I think that this is a fitting culmination of what got started back in the mid-40s when we got the property. So, thank you.
Let's have the entire Gardner family stand up so we don't. We don't know. Thank you very much. God bless you. There will be a permanent exhibit erected here in your family's honor.
Wow.
For what you've done. And, this is a very special day, and we want to commemorate this day for all time so that other people can see the great gift that y'all have provided to the citizens of the state of Tennessee. So thank you very, very much. There are a lot of other parties that have been, as you've heard, that have been a part of the processes here. Bobby is going to come over now. Bob Fulcher, the manager of the Cumberland Trail State Park, is, among other things, is going to come over and sort of highlight all those different organizations and individuals who are here today or represent an agency that may have been involved in this storied and very fascinating history associated with this parcel of land.